What's up, everybody? My name is Eric VTuber, and welcome to the wonderful world of Metaverse. Here on the channel, I like to teach you guys how to build environments for your own Metaverse, and today we are going to take a look at how to create a green screen environment in Unreal. Well, why would you want to set up a green screen environment? Well, maybe you are seeking to be a YouTube streamer and you want to have content behind you while you are on screen. And to give a great example of that, I don't know if you like or don't like Dr. Disrespect, but here's a great example of a YouTuber that is constantly in front of a dramatic background.
Hey guys, Dr. Disrespect here. Hi! Welcome to my YouTube channel. Hope you enjoy the content. Please subscribe to the channel and make sure to watch all of my other videos.
Now, I also made a video about how I teleport to different environments and how I set up this green screen environment. And here's an example of me in front of Unreal. So now that you've seen a couple use cases where you might want to have a green screen environment, let me show you guys how to build that in Unreal 5. So let's start off with the end in mind. So what you see is a character placed in front of a cine camera. We've got a light over here. Let me just move back a little bit. We've got a second light over here, so our fill and key lights, and then we've got a backlight. So we've got our three lights, our character, and our camera, and behind that is a green screen. This is the most traditional type of lighting configuration that you need to know. You have a fill light, as you see there over at around 8 o'clock, using a clock as a reference to the direction. You have a key light over there at 4 o'clock, and then you have a backlight. And the backlight serves the purpose of illuminating the shoulder and separating it from the background. So these three lights are pretty much your minimum configuration. You've got the camera right there at 6 o'clock, and at 12 o'clock is where the green screen would be. And that's what we're going to set up tonight, because this is the setup that you need if you want to do green screening like you saw with Dr. Disrespect or with myself. All right, with the end in mind, now let's go ahead and start from scratch and build this environment. So I'm going to create an entirely new level from scratch. And in this case, I'm going to do an empty level. Let me take a moment and save the current level. We'll call this level Green Screen 2, and that's only because I already have one. And here is our level. So with that level already open, there is nothing that you see right now. Now, some of you are going to want to create a green screen environment inside of a building or structure. And today, everything that I show you will work whether it's in an outdoor environment or an indoor environment, but I'm going to create an outdoor environment because many of you just work in that type of layout. So let's start off with creating the world. And I like to go up to Window and go to the Environment Light Mixer. This is the fastest way to set up your outdoor environment. There are many ways to do it, but simply just click on Create Skylight, create your atmospheric light, create a volumetric cloud, create your height fog, and create a sky atmosphere. All right? And with that done, you now have some of the basics that you need. Now that we've created our atmosphere for the outdoors, it's time for us to put a little geometry in for our environment. So I'm going to go up to the menu where I can quickly add to the project, and I'll drop down to Shapes. And let's start with a cube and put that in. And you'll notice here over on the left, you can take a look at the location. I'm just going to reset that so it puts it right to the middle of my world. And I'm going to put a scale of, let's go with 5 and 5. And we can leave that at 1. So I've created the scale for this object. And at this point, we have no idea how big that actually is. So what I like to do once I start creating an environment is bring in a character. So if you go to your content browser, if it's not already open, you can just hit Control and Shift to open that, but I keep mine always open. And I'm going to search for, make sure that you're here at the high level, and I'm assuming all of you are working in a third person type project as I am, but I will type in Manny here, and you'll notice that there's several different mannequins that will come up as I search, and let's just bring in Manny. All right, so now that you've got a reference point, you can see the size of that mannequin to the geometry that we created, and we probably need this to be a little bit bigger. So let's go with 20 and 20. So that's how I start off by building a little environment, and that's plenty big for us for this tutorial. Remember that if your mannequin is floating above wherever you put, you can always hit the N key on your keyboard and that will snap that to the ground. So now we need to add our lighting. And the lights that you want to use for green screening are not the point lights like you often use inside an environment, but we want to use the rect lights, these square lights, and we've now added one to the scene. Well, how many do we need to add? We need to add 3. I could go back up and do the same process again, but a nice little shortcut in Unreal is to hold the Alt key and slide over to that. Now, I'm going to hit delete and get rid of that object because since I'm copying it, I actually want to change some of its properties before I make a copy. If you'll notice this large blue kind of outline there, that's the amount of area that this light is affecting, and I don't want to have a light with that type of range. So let's hit delete, go back to our original light, and change a few things. And I'll teach you what some of these settings over here on your right are. By the way, if your environment does not look like this, where you've got your outliner up here, you've got your details down here, and the content browser, you can always go up to the window menu and go to load layout and go to the default editor layout, and that will bring you to that point, and you can open up your content drawer and dock it in your layout. All right, so that's what I have here. Now back to tweaking the lighting. So some of the things I want to do is adjust the barn door angle. Notice the rec lighting. The barn door angle controls how much the light kind of spreads up, down, left, and right. And the wider, the better, I find. And anything probably in the 80 range, so I'll just type 80, is going to work well for us. The door length is how far wide those doors range. And I'm going to go with 25 instead of the default of 20. Now, in terms of the settings down here, if you'll notice, casting shadows might surprise you, but I want to turn that actually off. So I'm going to turn that off, and that's because on our green screen background, as you'll see in a bit, we don't want the shadow of the character to be on the green. We want that green to be solid green. So turn that shadow off. And I would recommend that you change it from a stationary light to a movable light, because movable lights are the better setting if you're using Lumen, which is what we are doing. Now over here down on the right, we've got intensity and light color, and those are two other settings that you're often going to change. You can also change the temperature, and you might want to look on the internet around lighting temperatures, soft versus outdoor lighting. And even though you guys can't physically see me right now, I have 2 Elgato key lights at home. I don't need them because we are doing VTubing, but if I was actually streaming, I would have those lights set to a very soft light. So I have a color tone for my particular skin and hair color. If someone had lighter hair color, lighter skin, they might want to have that more outdoor light. So take a look at Kelvin, learn a little bit about lighting so that you can light your character as you want. But here's where the settings are for adjusting light color, intensity, and even the temperature. And then finally, in terms of settings, you've got your attenuation radius, and that's that blue circle that I told you about. And I'm just going to bring that down to a smaller amount about right here. I can change it later. Looks like I'm at 266. Let's just go with 255, and we'll leave it right there. So now I have one lighting with the properties that I like, and now I'm ready to make a clone of it. So I'm going to just hold down the Alt key and drag to my left, and then let's take another one, and this time holding down the Alt key, I'll drag to my right, and I've got my 3 lights, and I'm just going to leave them there for right now. All right, let's build our green screen. Very easy to do. We just go into the Add Elements, and I'm going to place a shape, And this time I'll just use a plane. It's a flat surface. I could use a cube and make it tall and wide and thin, but I can just use a plane. So that's all I'm going to do for right now. And I'm going to rotate that plane on the vertical, do that at 90 degrees. So we know that that's nice and square. Kind of hard to see that plane right now, so I'll come on in. And all good. So we've got the plane right there. Got to add a color to it. So, all right, now I would highly recommend that for some of the things that I'm doing tonight, you really want to think about where you put these things. I'm going to make a new folder. I would normally not put it here in maps. I would put it in the proper place. But for right now, I'm just going to put the GS underscore assets so that I can get rid of these later because I won't need it. And inside this folder, that's where I'm going to create our new materials. So I'm just going to right click and I'm going to make a new material. So to make a material, just go to the materials menu, click on material, and we'll call this green material. Now, if I double click into that, I'm now actually opening the blueprint for that material. And this may be your first time ever working inside of a blueprint. Again, all I did was just create the material, double click, and I need to set the color. To create this green screen material, we're going to do three things. First, we're going to start off with the base color. And to do that, we'll just drag over and type the word constant. And you'll see that there's a constant 3 vector. We want that as our node that's feeding in. Well, what is a constant 3 vector used for? Basically your RGB colors. And all we can do to just set our green is find a nice color green that we like, and we've set that. Now, if we didn't do anything else, notice how shiny and bright the green is, and we want to get rid of that. So the next step to get rid of that shininess, we just want to add a constant. And I'm going to hold down the number 1 on my keyboard and then just click with a left click, and I get this node that I'm going to run into roughness. And this node right here, if I hold down Control and Alt, you'll see that this is a constant expression. And this is a single constant. So I held down the number 1 and I put that. And the reason I'm doing this is over here now I can have a value. And if I maximize this to a number 1 instead of using 0 and hit enter, you'll notice that the shininess has gone away. So I've applied full roughness to this. The other thing I'm going to do on this emissive color, I probably don't need to do this, but I like to, is I'm going to hold down 1 again, click here, and I'm going to run 0 into emissive color because I don't want this to cast any kind of green onto anything else. By setting this to 0, it won't cast any light in my environment. So I do think that this is a best practice in terms of picking a green color, making it very rough surface with 1 as a value and 0 for emissive color. And then we can just click save. And now we have our green material. Now, once we've created that green material, all we have to do, and I showed some of this on the Discord channel the other day, is just drag that onto the background and we have our green color. Now we need to make this a little bit larger. So let's go up to our scale. Don't forget, on my mouse, I have set shortcuts to changing these little hotkeys up here by changing my mouse properties. Let's go back to scaling, and I'm just going to make this bigger. And now I'll make it wider. And here we go. All right, so now we can put our character in front of the green screen, and you'll notice that we're already seeing some lighting that we need to move away from the background. And now it's a matter of setting up my lights at those locations that we talked about earlier. We'll use this as our right light. We use this as our left light. Now, if I took all the time to tweak this in front of you, we'd eat up quite a bit of time. So I want to encourage you guys to do these adjustments on your own, but I'll give you just some of the basics, and then we'll go back to the environment that I had set up earlier. So the first thing is, by using rotation, rotate your backlight so you have that pointing at your character from the back. Then for our front light, make sure that you rotate that so that the barn doors are facing in the right direction. And then for this light over here, just the opposite rotation. And what I mean is you're going to need to play around with the distance that these lights are from the character. Now, you're not only going to play around with the distance, but you're going to go down to this area and change the intensity. So for right now, for each of these lights, I'm going to lower the intensity to the number 3. And this just comes from experience that I've built enough of these scenes that I know that a lower number is sufficient for the amount of lighting that I want. So I don't have a camera yet in my scene, and that's the last object that I need to add. So I'm going to go up to quickly add an item to my environment, and I'll go down to cinematic, and I'll grab the Cine Camera Actor. And now that I've got the camera in the scene, let me just move it out in front of my character. I'm going to rotate it. Raise it up a little bit. And this is what I mean is that there's quite a bit of tweaking that you're going to get into, and I don't want to drag you guys through that, or this video might be, a half hour, hour long. But I do need to show you a few last things. One is if you notice the character is out of focus. So how do you change the focus? Right down here where it says manual focus difference is where you change it. Before we do that, I like to use not the default 16:9 digital camera, but I like to use the 16:9 DSLR. That's what I actually use for streaming when I'm live streaming. That's the camera that I have on my desk. And I like that camera because I'm very familiar with the settings for it, and it's very good for this. So we're still out of focus. Now, many times you can use this little eyedropper to click on an object and bring it into focus, and you'll see that that worked. If you try to click that on your Metahuman, I have found for whatever reason, you're out of focus. So what you need to do then is just come in this area and kind of click and drag with your left mouse to get things into focus. But the eyedropper is a nice, handy way to just click on an object and bring it into focus. All right, so that is the basics for setting up the lighting and setting up the camera. Now, if I compiled this into an actual application, and I would do that by going to the menu here and then baking it, for example, as a Windows package, then I could run this as a standalone application. Before I do that, there's a few things I would need to do. Of course, I would need to replace the mannequin with my Metahuman, and I would also need to make sure that I have maybe some shortcuts to place the mannequin exactly at this location. And if you watch some of my other videos that I'll link to in the description, I've taught you how to set up teleport locations and how to set up keyboard shortcuts so you can move your character exactly to the right place. But those would be some of the final steps to do, is just make sure that you teleport your character to where you need to, and you'd have everything you need set up to do green screening. And then it would just be a matter of setting up OBS and layering, as we talked about earlier, this environment. I'm going to go back to the original environment that I showed you at the beginning of the video. And you can see with my character, I have done some additional things in this environment. One of the things that I did is added a post-process volume. And the post-process volume that I added into my environment enabled me to change the amount of exposure. If you'll notice, this area is not as bright as the other one. Now, I imagine most of you are going to do green screening in an indoor environment, but if you do it in an outdoor environment, you probably want to set up a post-process volume, and then you can type in infinite right here and make sure that infinite extend is checked. By default, it is not checked. You can see how bright it is, but if I check it, then I am controlling the exposure. And I can change the exposure by coming down here, just type EX, and it will bring you right to that setting. The exposure compensation, if you notice, I'm at about minus 0.59. The default looks like this, but I'm just taking the slider and I'm setting the environment so that it's not as bright in this outdoor environment. Just harsh to look at when it's that shiny. But there's Eric. There I am. So I hope you guys learned how to set up your green screen environment. I hope you dive into Unreal and try it for yourself. If you have any questions, feel free to post a comment below. I respond to every post that you guys make on the YouTube channel, and I also love seeing you in the Discord. The Discord channel is a great way to get further support from me and other members of the Eric VTuber community. That's going to do it. We'll catch you guys on the next episode.